I reckon there's some people who are concerned about this or questioning this. So let me ask you, is this a question that you are also concerned about? Let me see if I can bring that up. So just type in the chat yes or no. Like, we've got more AI generated content. Is it a concern for you? And look, you might say no, it's not, because I know how to manage it. I know how to do it. But it's for the people who are going yes, there's some people who are going no. But yeah, like I think this is it's a real concern that people are saying. We don't know what's happening with AI, and we know there's a lot more AI generated content out there. Can I just ask, given that there are about 5% of people in the room who say no, it's not an issue for them, can I just ask if you can just type in the chat, what are you doing to make sure that this is not an issue for you? What are you doing? Sarah says triangulating information, which I think she's saying look at multiple sources. Vicky's saying, I'm pretending it doesn't happen. Yeah, scientific approach, research, talk to actual people, go back to source evidence. And the thing I like about this is that all of these answers, most of the answers, are saying this is not about AI, it's an issue that we've always had, especially now because there's so much online information and you need to go back and verify, trust and verify everything. So just in case anyone doesn't know, did you know that not everything on the internet is true? Okay, so just let that sink in, right? In case you didn't know that, and if it's come as a blast out of the blue for you, it's true that we've had to do this for a long time. Let me ask you a question here. If I'm going to ask you, what do these 5 places have in common? Okay, so what do these 5 places have in common? It's well known. It's well known. It's the letter A. It's more about where they are and the actual communities there. Long-lived populations. Yeah, that's right. So Tanya was the first person to get that. So these are what are known as the blue zones. Okay, so the blue zones are these areas that researchers went into, and they said they looked at these because they seem to have people who lived longer than normal, and they looked at the reasons behind that, and they came up with a number of things. The biggest one was that probably made the biggest headlines was these communities had more social connections. So people were tight-knit, they were close, not just family but friends, and they spent a lot of time together, and people actually have built businesses and written books about this and built their whole expertise around this idea that, you know, if you want to live for a long time, build these social connections and get off your devices, hang out with people. And then more recently, there's been some other research that said this research was actually wrong. So a second group of researchers came in and said, this sounds good, but actually the research was flawed. And they looked at Okinawa as an example. And the first group of researchers said Okinawa is fantastic because they have its diet of sweet potatoes, and they have, as I said, they're very family oriented, and they build this social cohesion or connection. But the second group of researchers said what the first group didn't say was that and Freya is actually right, and they keep poor birth records. That was actually the biggest thing. So they said that there were people who were 95 and they looked really young, but the reason they were 95 and looked young was because they were kind of cheating the government, because their parent who was 95 was earning a pension, but the dad died, and then the son pretended to be the dad so they could keep earning the pension, and they were actually 65, right? So that was the other thing that they found was a flaw. And they said things like, in Okinawa, they have a higher child poverty rate than the rest of Japan. They have a higher murder rate than the rest of Japan, and they eat more KFC than other regions. So these first researchers had conveniently overlooked those in order to highlight these things that are the positive sides of it. So that they debunked that research. And then very recently, there's been some other research that was done just in the last few months. A third group of researchers looked at the second group and said the second group was wrong, the first group was right all along. And they said, the thing about faking birth records and keeping poor birth records and faking ages and stuff, gerontologists know this. The first group of researchers took that into account, and they did all the sort of stuff that real scientists should do to be able to validate, to be able to provide valid research. So who's right? Who's wrong? Who do you believe? Well, you believe the consensus that's out there right now. Okay, and this is the way the science works, that there's a hypothesis, it seems to be valid in the world, and then something breaks that hypothesis, and then you need to readjust and you need to change it. So this got nothing to do with AI, and I deliberately chose an example that's got nothing to do with AI, because the whole point is that we need to validate everything that we're scanning. Okay, and if it's a really important decision, we need to validate it even more. For little minor decisions, it may not be as important, but especially if you're making decisions that are going to affect people's lives and livelihoods, then you need to evaluate